Oh
Who
yeah,
is the composer of Dragon Ball Z? I only know the American one.
There's two
yeah.
different composers for
Bruce
Dragon
Faulkner
Ball
did the
Z.
American. I don't remember who
Yeah.
did the Japanese one. I don't know.
Yeah, they changed a
I
lot of
also don't know if
music
it
when
was
they
like
first
one.
released Dragon Ball Z in the West
So
back
did
in the
they Power
90s.
Rangers eyes it?
Not really.
Well, they
Kinda, I guess.
they mainly just changed the music
Just
where
the music.
because they wanted the music to be like more Americanized and um.
That's
But
happened a couple of
honestly, like
times. That's
when
happened a
they when
couple of
they
times in
did
movies.
when they did Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is the redub of it, which cut out a lot of filler, they used the original Japanese soundtrack, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is kind of better."
Yeah. It honestly is.
It's just not that Bruce
Essentially,
Faulkner's music isn't great, it is, but the original Japanese score just fits the tone so much better.
they essentially replaced like I think it's like mostly like horns, right? Like horns and drums.
Yeah, yeah. Dragon Ball Z is big on horns
They replaced that with like electric guitar.
and synth.
Well,
Yeah.
that sounds very 90s.
Yeah.
So that sounds like something we would do in the 90s. So yeah, that doesn't so much surprise me that much.
That was still back in the day where America was trying to like Americanize anime still a little bit.
Well,
in
interesting.
the
Interesting.
Dragon Ball
That
Z
happened to the Godzilla franchise very much as well, particularly in the 60s. If you watch a lot of the American cuts, which are alternate cuts to these movies, very much often Akira Ifukube's soundtracks were replaced by the sort of stock US tracks. And I think a part of it was because they thought the soundtrack sounded a little too Japanese. Because if you notice a motif within a lot of these films, the music that would often be replaced in the US cuts of these Godzilla films is the military marches. Because Ifukube was known for doing these classic military marches that they still use to this day. And those would be the ones to be replaced. Particularly the US producer Henry G. Saperstein, who's responsible for bringing a shit ton of these Godzilla movies, War of the Gargantuas, Frankenstein Conquers the World, all these cult classics of tokusatsu, over to the United States. He partially produced them, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But if you watch his version of War of the Gargantuas, it removes a shit ton of Ifukube's score because he didn't like it. He said he thought it sounded too Japanese, and I'm like, I disagree. I think the Ifukube's music fit ridiculously more than the stock music, the stock library music that they used in that. The only exception to this rule that I can think of is in the U.S. cut of Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster. I thought the Americans' decision to add in tracks to underscore certain scenes that in the Japanese version had no music at all, I thought benefited the pace of the movie a bit. It added tension to scenes that otherwise didn't really have tension.
Right, because that's not really like a change. It's more so just adding more to it.
Yeah. But it's really sad because those U.S. cuts, I think, are just as important as the Japanese cuts. And I'm not saying that they're better or worse. That's not me saying that here. But they are as important as the Japanese cuts because at least in the West, that's how most of us became Godzilla fans. Like, I guarantee you, if you've seen Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster, you have not seen the original Japanese cut to that movie. You've seen the altered United States cut to that movie.
Yeah.
And that's why I defend them tooth and claw. I do. Like, I'm like, the fact that, because Toho wants to erase those cuts. Toho doesn't want those cuts to be released at all. So, the closest thing we've gotten to them are really well done fan edits. Restoring, using like Toho's restored footage and then re-editing the movie to the American cut of the film. Like the most impressive one that I've seen is Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster. Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster's US cut restoration is phenomenally well done. And the amount of resources that the people who put it together and the research that they did putting it together is really fascinating to read about. It's super fascinating.
It's always so cool to see like a bunch of fans come together to like create something that was like, or like recreates a piece of lost media You know,
Yeah,
and I always
think,
thought
I think
that's
that's
so
really
interesting.
cool. I've always found that really cool, and I love how their mentality going into this was not, no, we're going to, the U.S. cut was superior, and they never had that mentality. They say almost right from the get go that we wanted to do this just to preserve this cut of the movie. We are recreating this cut, warts and all. Like, there are genuine issues with the U.S. cut, but they kept all those issues in, and I'm like,
But like, it
props
still
to them.
matters because it still happened. You can't.
still
just-
happened,
You
yeah.
can't erase history, you know.
And I'm like, Geach of the Three-Headed Monster, I've done I've fucking done a 2-part video on this, for Christ's sakes. The Geach of the Three-Headed Monster, the US cut, I think is superior to that is one of the few American versions that I think is superior to the Japanese cut. I just think it's paced better, it's structured better, because that's an example of, they didn't just like replace the music, they rearranged a few scenes, they cut a couple of scenes out, and they just made it a tighter movie. That flows better. Justin Tang, if I can pull up the chat screen really quick. Let's see. Justin, he says, I believe Rodan was the first one where the English version included Ifukube's music. Yes. No, you're wrong. The Godzilla King of the Monsters had no stock music. They loved the movie so much that Americanized version of the movie kept all of Ifukube's score. And they didn't add any stock music at all. They didn't even westernize the music at all. They liked Ifukube's score so much they left it all in. So Rodan was the first one where the English version included Ifukube's music. That is not true, though not all the segments. Yeah, the English cut to Rodan is also great, particularly the attack sequence, because they made the decision of removing Ifukube's music or any music at all during that sequence. But yeah, the English version has a couple of scenes where I think the US they added music to fit what was happening on screen a little bit more, because Ifukube had this bad, I don't know, saying it's a bad habit, it's not. Ifukube didn't write scores to fit what was happening on screen. He wrote scores to underscore them, to set a mood. And that's what he did. Often because he just didn't have time to freaking write. Because he was doing 6-7 movies a year.
Right.
And he had like 3 days to make a score for a movie. An hour-and-a-half movie. So he just didn't have time. But what the American version of Rodan did, particularly when you see Rodan hatch from the egg, is it added music that kind of fit the sequence. Like when Rodan hatches, suddenly there's like a quick blare of horns. And then Rodan roars. Well, in the Japanese version, there's no music to underscore that sequence. It's just the sound of the ambience and stuff like that. And that's just an example. Shaw _Stan. Let's see. The eerie little piano track that comes in during Rodan's appearance in Geach of the Three-Headed Monsters US cut sticks with me. I agree with you. That was one of the tracks that I really liked in the US cut. And I'll always love the Creature from the Black Lagoon music appearing in King Kong vs. Godzilla. Yeah, me too.
Oh yeah.
Because that's actually a really good example for you guys. That is a great example of where the US version of that movie, they hated Ifukube's score. Fucking hated it. And so they completely removed it and inserted universal stock music from their horror movies. For good and for bad. Personally, I think it fits the tone of the movie a little bit more. It adds a cheesy element to it, because if you listen to Ifukube's score for King Kong vs. Godzilla, it's unbelievably dark. And I'm like, this is like a comedy. So I have mixed feelings about that, but I'm glad you brought that up, Shaw _Stan. There. How did I guess that this live stream would turn to Godzilla?
It's an AN production stream. It wouldn't be that without Godzilla.
No, it really wouldn't.
That's just par for the course.
This is par for the course. But Merry Christmas, everybody! Merry Christmas again.
Yes.
This is the Merry Christmas live stream, or the Christmas live stream. I think it's time for another shot, personally.
Yeah, I was going to bring up before how, like, you know, the differences between, you know, American scoring for Japanese media, specifically Dragon Ball. I think it was in the Cooler's Revenge movie where one of the fight scenes, there's just a fucking Disturbed song playing.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Yeah, they just put a Disturbed song in this
What?
movie
What?
out of nowhere.
Can
And I'm
I
like-
say, when it comes to Dragon Ball movies, Metacooler sucks.
Oh, Medical is awful.
What
No,
a
but-
terrible movie.
No, but the one with the Disturbed song is the first Cooler movie.
Oh, that's why. Oh,
Is
you're
that- is
right.
that-
Fuck, that is.
Yeah.
You're right.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Enlighten me.
Okay. Do you know who Frieza is?
No, but I can find out.
Okay. Frieza's okay. Think of Frieza as Space Hitler.
Yeah,
Essentially.
that essentially is Frieza in a nutshell. He is Space Hitler.
Oh,
Yeah.
that thing. Yes.
Yeah.
That thing.
Yeah. His older brother is named Cooler, and he appeared in 2 movies. And the first one, he just kind of came to Earth to, like, I guess destroy it or whatever.
I think
And-
he's gonna kill Goku.
I think it was just to kill Goku. Yeah. And
But
in the
not
second,
because he killed his
No, but I can
brother,
find out.
but because he wanted to prove that he was better than Frieza by defeating him.
and the second Cooler movie, it's one of the most stupid and convoluted plots where Cooler's like a robot now, and he has a bunch of robot clones of himself, and he has this big robotic star that's attached to this planet and draining its life, and I'm just like, this is dumb. This is really dumb.
Brandon says hi, everybody.
Hi, Brandon.
I just want to say I won Gay of the Year, not you. No one's gonna understand that except for us and Brandon.
That's why you should watch my channel.
Game Controller. Your link is in the description, so if you guys want to subscribe to Game Controller Network, it's down there.
Yeah.
But anyways, continue. My apologies.
Yeah, but it was such a bizarre. Some of the choices in that movie were really weird, and like the editing is really bad too. And some of the art is off. Like there's a really infamous scene in that movie where the character Piccolo has a lazy eye in one shot, and like how did this?
Was that
How
due to
did this
budget
happen?
though? That's what I'm gonna ask.
I don't know if that was due
It's-
to budget or time
that's so hard
constraints
to-
or just
It's kind of hard to
You know,
believe though,
oversight.
because it's a Dragon Ball movie.
yeah.
It's
They usually
not
get
like a TV movie, like a theatrical
it's a
movie.
theatrical release. Yeah.